Okay, let's get started here. As outlined in the previous slide, we will be visiting the radio facilities in a pair of World War II vessels berthed at Battleship Cove, Fall River, Massachusetts. Fall River is in the southeastern corner of the state, in the encircled area near the bottom of the map. Here we see the battleship with her 16-inch guns raised and silhouetted against an evening sky. And here's an onboard view looking over the forward 16-inch gun turrets. As a consequence of her being decommissioned and mothballed in 1946, virtually all the original World War II radio equipment is still on board in its original configuration and is in excellent condition. Our tour of the battleship will begin in Radio 1, which was the primary center for incoming message traffic. Many receivers here. Radio 1 is in an area open to the public, hence the plexiglass barriers. Here's another view of a different part of the area. The sailor scene here is a dummy, by the way. Here we are behind the barrier for a somewhat better view. RBB and RBC receiver scene here, along with a pan adapter and a standard Navy operating desk, of which you will see many examples during this tour. In Radio 1 we also have this TBS transceiver used for short-range communications between surface craft. This set operated in a frequency range of 60 to 80 megahertz, single channel, crystal controlled transmitter and receiver, 50 watts out on voice and MCW. We've now moved on to Radio 2 down inside the armor belt. These spaces are not open to the public. The transmitter on the left is a TAJ, which operates over a frequency range of 175 to 600 kilohertz, CW only, and with a power output of 500 watts. The next transmitter down the aisle is a TBM with its associated modulator rack. This set operates over a frequency range of 2 to 18.1 megahertz with 500 watts out on CW, MCW, and voice. A second TBM is located across the aisle, the modulator rack of which can just be seen on the right-hand side of the picture. This is a front-on view of the area directly to our right in the last picture. Various patch panels for control of the equipment in this area can be seen here, along with telephone and intercom equipment, and a probably not original speaker. A close-up of one of the patch panels can be seen in this next slide. And here we see a close-up of the 861 PA tube in the TAJ. Here we're looking into the PA compartment of the TBM. If you look closely at the bottom of the screen, you will see a hand with a screwdriver overriding the door interlock, so this picture could be taken. View of the area here as seen from the other end of the aisle. On the right, a TBS and TDE can be seen in addition to the TAJ and TBM described before, and a second TBM and modulator pair can be seen on the left. One of the motor generator sets that power these equipments can also be glimpsed through the arch at the far end of the room. Here's a better view of the TDE. Two separate transmitters in the same cabinet here. One covering 300 to 1500 kilohertz and the other 1.5 to 18 megahertz. The power output of either is 125 watts on CW, 35 watts on MCW, and 25 watts on voice. Here we see W1NZR studying the TBM manual. On the day we visited and took these pictures, the modulator was not working, and we decided to pull maintenance on the unit. The problem turned out to be a shorted screen bypass cap in the speech amp, which was corrected in short order. The modulator is surprisingly sophisticated for the period, including effective speech compression circuitry and a modulation reactor shunting the modulation transformer secondary. And here's yours truly, W7QHO, in QSO with the TBM on 75 meters. Local receiving position in Radio 2. RBA, RBB, and RBC receivers, and a general radio frequency meter mounted on a pair of the standard Navy radio desks. And another view. These are examples of the motor generator sets that provided power for the transmitters in Radio 2. In the configuration seen here, three-phase AC motors were used to drive the DC generators, which powered the individual transmitters. We've now moved further down inside the ship to the emergency radio area. TAJ transmitter on the left, a TBK in the middle, and their associated motor generator sets on the right. The TBK is actually the same transmitter as the TBM we saw in Radio 2, but without the modulator rack. This TBK does have a modulator, however, as seen here. This unit was manufactured by RCA, and the configuration is much different than the floor-standing modulator seen in Radio 2. Okay, that concludes our tour of the battleship. Back up on the deck and looking over a cluster of 5-inch gun turrets, we see our next stop, the submarine Lionfish. Tight quarters here in the sub's radio room. RAK and RAL receivers on the left and TBL transmitter on the right. The ham seen here is actually operating a modern transceiver. Better view of the TBL. And yet a better view of a TBL, this one, located at the Historical Radio Museum near Baltimore in Maryland. Like the TDE we saw earlier, this unit is made up of two separate transmitters operating side by side. One side covered 175 to 600 kilohertz, the other 2 to 18.1 megahertz. 200 watts out on CW, 100 watts MCW, and 50 watts voice. This transmitter type was widely used in both shipboard and shore installations.